The void of space rippled as the Crimson Talon emerged from its jump point just beyond the moon. Inside the warship's deployment bay, Commander Drex checked his armor seals one final time. Around him, 49 other warriors made their own preparations. Each stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in the distinctive red and black armor of the Vargan Elite Strike Force. They had done this 847 times before on 847 different worlds. Not once had they failed. Not once had they lost a single warrior. Drex walked between the rows of deployment pods, his heavy boots clanging against the metal deck. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Halvik, fell into step beside him. The younger warriors showed signs of excitement, but the veterans like Halvik displayed only calm focus. This was just another mission. Just another primitive world that would fall before the might of the Galactic Dominion. The briefing had been simple. Earth contained valuable minerals beneath its crust. The native species called humans had barely achieved spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based projectiles and crude explosives. Their military technology was centuries behind Dominion standard. The humans had been classified as a soft species, evolved on a gentle world with no significant environmental challenges. The conquest would take less than a day, land near their largest military installation, demonstrate overwhelming force and accept their surrender. Standard procedure. Drex examined the tactical display showing Earth rotating peacefully below them. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. White clouds drifted across green and brown landmasses. It looked pleasant enough, almost inviting. The atmospheric readings showed breathable air with high oxygen content. Temperature readings were well within comfortable ranges. Gravity was listed at 1.2 times standard, but that seemed like a minor detail. The Dominion had conquered high-gravity worlds before without issue. The deployment alarm sounded throughout the bay. Warriors moved to their assigned pods with practiced efficiency. Drex climbed into his pod and felt the restraints lock into place around his armored body. Through the transparent canopy, he could see other pods sealing shut. The bay doors began to open, revealing the blue and white marble of Earth hanging in the darkness. His communication system crackled to life. It was Halvik from the pod beside his. The veteran warrior's voice carried a note of humor. Some of the younger troops were making bets on how quickly the humans would surrender. One optimistic soldier was convinced they would give up before the warriors even reached the surface. Another thought the humans might try to fight for at least an hour before realizing how outmatched they were. Drex allowed himself a slight smile. Confidence was good for morale. The launch sequence initiated and his pod lurched forward. Through the canopy, he watched 49 other pods shoot out from the Crimson Talon like silver arrows aimed at Earth's surface. The formation was perfect. The pods began their descent through the atmosphere, heat shields glowing as they cut through the air. The target zone appeared on his display. A military installation in the northern region of the largest continent. Mountains rose to the west. Forests spread out in all directions. The pods adjusted their trajectory, aiming for a clearing near the base perimeter. Drex felt the deceleration kick in as the pod's engines fired to slow their descent. The ground rushed up to meet them. Impact came with a solid thump. The pod's shock absorbers handled most of the force, but Drex still felt the jolt through his armor. Steam hissed as the emergency seals released. The canopy split open and swung upward. Fresh air rushed in, carrying scents of vegetation and soil. Drex unbuckled his restraints and prepared to stand. This was the moment of triumph. The first step onto another conquered world. He pushed himself up and immediately something felt wrong. His legs trembled under his weight. His armor suddenly felt like it was made of solid iron instead of lightweight composite. Every muscle in his body strained against an invisible force trying to crush him back into the pod. He managed to get one foot on the ground outside the pod. The soil seemed to grab at his boot, pulling him down with unexpected strength. Around him, other pods were opening. Warriors were attempting to emerge. Drex heard grunts of effort over the communication channel. Someone cursed in the old Vargan dialect. Another warrior called out in confusion. Drex forced his other foot out of the pod and tried to stand fully upright. His knees buckled. His spine felt like it was being compressed. Every breath required effort. The air was thick, heavy, pressing down on his chest. 3 warriors near the edge of the landing zone collapsed completely. Their armor clanged against the ground as they fell forward onto their hands and knees. One tried to rise and fell again. Another simply lay still, his breathing ragged and desperate over the open channel. Drex's own vision was starting to tunnel. His heart pounded in his chest, working overtime to pump blood through his body. His muscles burned with the effort of simply remaining upright. Halvik's pod was 10 meters away. Drex watched his second-in-command struggle to climb out. The veteran warrior made it 3 steps before dropping to one knee. His plasma rifle fell from his grip and hit the ground with a heavy thud that Drex felt through his boots. Halvik tried to retrieve the weapon but could not lift it. The rifle that had felt weightless on the ship now seemed anchored to the earth. Drex attempted to move forward and managed only a stumbling half-step. His translator unit was working, but speech required more breath than he could spare. He triggered the emergency communication to the Crimson Talon. The words came out as a wheeze. Gravity. The crushing gravity. They needed extraction. They needed help. All around him, the pride of the Vargan military lay scattered across the clearing like broken toys. The galaxy's most feared warriors had been defeated by simply touching the ground. Through his failing vision, Drex saw movement at the edge of the trees. Figures in green camouflage were approaching cautiously. Humans. They held their primitive weapons ready but seemed more confused than threatened. One of them was speaking into a communication device. Drex could not understand the language, but he understood the tone. Surprise. Complete and utter surprise. The humans had not defeated them. Earth itself had. The warriors fell instantly on Earth's soil, and Drex knew with terrible certainty that everything the Dominion believed about conquest was about to change forever. 2 hours after the landing, Rebecca Hayes crouched beside one of the fallen aliens and tried to understand what she was seeing. The creature was massive, easily 8 feet tall even lying on its side. Its armor looked advanced beyond anything human military had produced. The weapon beside it probably cost more than her entire base's annual budget. Yet this warrior could not even lift its own head without assistance. Medical teams had arrived within 30 minutes of the landing. Nobody knew quite what to do. Were these aliens really in distress, or was this some kind of trick? Rebecca had ordered her soldiers to keep their distance while medics carefully approached. The aliens made no aggressive moves. They could barely move at all. Their translator devices produced words in broken English, repeating the same message over and over. Too heavy. Cannot breathe. Help us. Dr. Neil Foster arrived in a helicopter from the nearest research facility. He was a tall, thin man who usually studied bacteria samples in a laboratory. Now he found himself examining alien biology in a forest clearing in Montana. He unpacked portable scanning equipment and began taking readings from the nearest alien. The creature watched him with what might have been fear in its large dark eyes. Rebecca stood beside Neil as he reviewed the first results. His expression changed from curiosity to concern to something like pity. He showed her the screen displaying the alien's skeletal structure. The bones were long and elegant but far too thin, like bird bones but scaled up to support an 8-foot frame. Neil explained that the alien's bone density was about 60% of a human's. On their homeworld, this was probably sufficient. On Earth, their own skeleton was slowly crushing itself under gravity's pull. The cardiovascular scan was even worse. The alien's heart was working at triple its normal rate just to keep blood flowing. Their blood pressure was dangerously low, because their circulatory system had evolved for weaker gravity. Every heartbeat was a struggle. Every breath required the alien to use muscles never designed for such resistance. Neil estimated they had been suffering the equivalent of a heart attack for the past 2 hours. Rebecca called for heavy equipment. If these aliens could not stand in Earth's gravity, they would need specialized facilities. The base had a warehouse that could be converted into a low-gravity chamber. It would take time, but it was better than watching these warriors die in a forest. While engineers began the conversion work, Rebecca tried to communicate with the alien leader. His translator identified him as Commander Drex. Drex managed to speak in short, pained sentences. He explained that his species, the Vargans, had conquered hundreds of worlds. They were the elite military force of something called the Galactic Dominion. They had never lost a battle, never failed a mission, never encountered a planet they could not subjugate within days. Earth was supposed to be another easy victory. The data said it was a soft world inhabited by a weak species. The Dominion's intelligence officers had classified humans as harmless. Rebecca asked about the gravity readings. Surely their sensors had detected Earth's higher gravity before they landed. Drex's response was halting and ashamed. Yes, the readings showed 1.2 times standard gravity. But the Dominion had conquered worlds with similar readings before. The difference had never mattered. What they did not know was that all those previous conquests had been on worlds with gravity between 0.7 and 0.9 times Earth's standard. The Dominion had built an empire by subjugating worlds gentler than their own. Earth was the first high-gravity world they had attempted to invade. The implications hit Rebecca like a physical force. Every human on Earth had evolved under gravity that most spacefaring species would consider crushing. Humans grew up learning to walk, run, and fight under conditions that crippled alien warriors. Every child who learned to stand against Earth's pull was training for combat without knowing it. Every athlete who lifted weights was exceeding alien military standards. Humans were not weak. The rest of the galaxy was. Dr. Foster confirmed it with more scans. He examined human and Vargan physiology side by side. A human skeleton could support nearly 3 times its body weight without damage. Vargan bones started to fracture under 1.5 times their body weight. Human muscles were dense with slow twitch fibers built for endurance. Vargan muscles were designed for quick movements in low resistance. A human heart could pump blood efficiently up to a height of 7 feet. A Vargan heart struggled at 5 feet in Earth gravity. Private David Lynn demonstrated the difference without meaning to. He picked up one of the alien plasma rifles out of curiosity. The weapon was nearly 4 feet long and made of some kind of dense metal. David lifted it with one hand, examined it, then casually slung it over his shoulder. Nearby, Drex watched with an expression Rebecca could not quite read. That rifle weighed 90 pounds. It required a Vargan loading mechanism to mount on their armor. A human soldier had just picked it up like it was a toy. Word spread through the military channels quickly. Above Earth's atmosphere, the alien warship called Crimson Talon still waited. Its commander, someone named Talvik, demanded the return of his warriors. General Raymond Price handled the communication from Washington. He was a career military man who had seen combat on 4 continents. He did not intimidate easily, and he did not appreciate threats from orbit. Talvik's message was simple. Return the Vargan strike force immediately or face orbital bombardment. General Price's response was even simpler. The Vargan warriors were receiving medical attention because they could barely survive on Earth's surface. They would be returned when their condition was stable. If Talvik wanted to join them on the ground, he was welcome to try. The communication ended with Talvik sputtering in rage and disbelief. Rebecca suggested they send proof. Show the aliens exactly what happened to their elite warriors. David volunteered for the demonstration. They set up cameras and recording equipment. David wore his standard combat gear, about 40 pounds of equipment and armor. He picked up Drex's plasma rifle and added another 90 pounds. Then he started doing push-ups, 1, 2, 3, 20. He did not break a sweat. He did not struggle. He made it look easy because for a human it was easy. Next, David jogged around the clearing while carrying 2 alien rifles. He climbed a tree while wearing Drex's armor. He did jumping jacks with 130 pounds of alien equipment strapped to his body. The Vargan warriors who could still see watched in complete silence. Drex's translator produced a single word in English. Impossible. General Price sent the video to the Crimson Talon. He included a simple message. This is an average human soldier performing routine exercises. Your elite warriors are receiving the best medical care available. Please reconsider any aggressive action against Earth. We do not wish to fight, but we are clearly capable of defending ourselves. Every human you see is built for this world. Your warriors are not. On the Crimson Talon, Talvik watched the video 3 times. His military advisors argued about whether it was faked. Some insisted humans must be using artificial enhancements or robotics. Others pointed out the scans they had taken from orbit. Human skeletal structure and muscle density matched the Dominion's readings for heavy world species. Species that evolved on planets the Dominion had always avoided because the environment was too hostile. Talvik sent an encrypted message to Dominion High Command. The invasion of Earth had failed. All 50 warriors were incapacitated. Human military capability was far beyond initial estimates. Recommend immediate retreat and reassessment. He did not wait for a response before ordering his ship to a higher orbit. Whatever Earth was, it was not defenseless. The humans had not fired a single shot, but they had already won. Their planet had fought the battle for them, and the Galactic Dominion's greatest warriors had fallen instantly on Earth's soil. News of the failed invasion reached the Dominion Council within 6 hours. Council leader Vren received the report while overseeing trade negotiations with a newly conquered mining colony. He dismissed his staff immediately and sealed himself in his private chambers to read Talvik's full assessment. Every word made his blood run colder. 50 elite warriors defeated without combat, incapacitated by natural planetary conditions, humans demonstrating physical capabilities that exceeded Vargan military standards, request for complete strategic withdrawal. Vren's first instinct was to dismiss Talvik as a coward or a fool. But Talvik was neither. He was a decorated commander with 40 successful campaigns. He had personally led ground assaults on 6 worlds. His tactical assessments had never been wrong. If Talvik said Earth was dangerous, then Earth was dangerous. The video footage confirmed it. Vren watched a human soldier perform feats that would cripple a Vargan warrior. He watched humans move with ease under gravity that had crushed Drex's entire strike force. The political implications were catastrophic. The Dominion had built its power on fear and military superiority. For 200 years, they had expanded across 12 galaxies without significant resistance. Subject worlds stayed conquered because rebellion seemed pointless. The Dominion military was too strong, too advanced, too inevitable. But now 50 elite warriors had fallen on a primitive world. If news of this failure spread, every conquered species would see an opportunity. Vren convened an emergency session of the High Council. 23 council members gathered in the Grand Chamber, each representing a different sector of Dominion space. Most had heard rumors already. Communication between ships was impossible to completely control. Crew members talked. Officers speculated. By the time the council met, half the fleet knew something had gone terribly wrong at Earth. The debate began immediately. Some council members demanded an overwhelming military response. Send 100 ships instead of 1. Bombard Earth from orbit until the surface was glass. Make an example of the humans so brutal that no other species would dare resist. Others argued for a diplomatic approach. Study Earth from a distance, learn why their gravity was so different. Perhaps establish trade relations instead of attempting conquest. Vren listened to both sides and said nothing. He was thinking about something Talvik had mentioned in his report. The Dominion had conquered 847 worlds. Every single one had gravity between 0.7 and 0.9 times Earth standard. Every single one. They had built an empire by attacking worlds weaker than their own. They had never tested themselves against a truly hostile environment. They had mistaken conquering the weak for being strong. Meanwhile on Earth, the Vargan warriors were slowly recovering in converted low-gravity chambers. Human engineers had worked for 3 days to create an environment where the aliens could survive comfortably. The chambers maintained 0.7 gravity, similar to the Vargan homeworld. Inside these spaces, Drex and his warriors could stand and move without pain. They could breathe without feeling like they were drowning. But they could not leave. The moment they stepped outside, Earth's natural conditions would crush them again. Rebecca visited Drex daily. She brought food adapted for Vargan biology and answered his questions about Earth. Drex wanted to understand everything. How did humans survive childhood under such gravity? How did they learn to walk when every step was a battle? How did they build cities and civilizations while fighting their own planet every moment of every day? Rebecca's answers were simple. They did not fight their planet. They adapted to it. Earth was not an enemy. It was home. Humans knew nothing else. Drex shared information about the Dominion in return. He described worlds where the sky was purple and water floated in the air. He talked about species that communicated through color changes and others that existed as collective consciousness. The galaxy was vast and diverse and full of wonders, but everywhere the Dominion went, they brought the same message. Submit or be destroyed. Hundreds of civilizations had chosen submission. Their cultures were erased, their resources extracted, their people turned into subjects of an empire that cared nothing for them. Rebecca asked why Drex was telling her this. He was a Dominion commander. His loyalty should be absolute. Drex's response came slowly, as if he was surprising himself with his own words. He had spent his entire life believing in Dominion superiority. They were the strongest, the most advanced, the most deserving of galactic dominance. But lying helpless on Earth's soil had taught him something. Strength was relative. The Dominion was only strong against those weaker than themselves. Against Earth, against humans who grew up under crushing gravity, the Dominion was fragile and weak. Above Earth, tensions were building. Talvik had moved the Crimson Talon to a high orbit, but he was receiving contradictory orders from High Command. Vren wanted him to maintain position and prepare for a possible second assault. Other council members wanted immediate withdrawal. Some were even suggesting abandoning the warriors on the surface. 50 Vargans were not worth risking an entire warship if the humans proved hostile. Talvik ignored the conflicting orders and made his own decision. He opened a direct communication channel with General Price. The conversation was brief and professional. Talvik wanted to know if the Vargan warriors would be returned alive. General Price confirmed they would be, as soon as medical staff determined they could survive the trip back to low gravity. Talvik asked about Earth's intentions. Would humans seek revenge? Would they attack Dominion territories? General Price gave an answer that Talvik would remember for the rest of his life. Earth did not want war. Earth wanted to be left alone. If the Dominion could respect that, there would be peace. The simplicity of it shocked Talvik. The Dominion had never encountered a species that did not want to expand, conquer, or dominate. Power existed to be used. Territory existed to be claimed. Resources existed to be exploited. But humans apparently thought differently. They had defeated a Dominion strike force without firing a shot. They held advanced alien technology and imprisoned warriors. They could study Dominion weapons, reverse-engineer Dominion ships, maybe even launch their own counterattack. But they were not doing any of those things. They were healing the wounded and asking politely to be left in peace. Talvik sent a new report to High Command. He included his conversation with General Price. He added his own assessment. Earth was not just dangerous because of its high gravity. Earth was dangerous because humans did not think like Dominion species. They did not automatically assume that strength meant domination. They had power but exercised restraint. That made them unpredictable. That made them potentially more dangerous than any military force. Vren read Talvik's report and felt something he had not felt in decades: fear. Not fear of human weapons or technology, fear of what humanity represented. If other species learned that the Dominion could be defeated, that resistance was possible, that strength came in many forms beyond military might, the entire empire would collapse. Conquered worlds would rebel. Subject species would unite. The careful balance of terror that kept the Dominion in power would shatter. He made his decision. Earth would be destroyed. Not conquered, destroyed. An orbital bombardment using kinetic weapons. Drop asteroids on their major cities. Render the planet uninhabitable. If humans could not be conquered, they had to be eliminated. If word of Earth's victory spread, it would inspire every enslaved species in the Dominion. Better to wipe out one species than risk losing control of thousands. Vren began planning the attack in secret. He did not tell the full council. He did not give Talvik advance warning. He would redirect 3 asteroid mining ships toward Earth's inner solar system, program them to break apart several large rocks and send them on collision courses with Earth's major cities. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it would be too late to stop. Earth would burn, and with it the idea that the Dominion could be resisted. But in his haste and fury, Vren made one critical mistake. He underestimated Talvik. The ship commander had spent weeks watching Earth. He had monitored human communications and studied their culture. He had spoken with General Price and heard something in the human's voice that resonated. Dignity, honor, a willingness to fight if necessary, but a preference for peace. Talvik had begun to question everything the Dominion stood for. And when Vren's secret orders came through encrypted channels meant only for mining operations, Talvik's communication officer intercepted them and brought them to his attention. Talvik read the orders 3 times to make sure he understood. Vren was planning genocide. Not military action. Not tactical bombardment. Complete extermination of an entire species, because they had proven too strong to conquer and too honorable to corrupt. In that moment, Talvik made a choice that would change galactic history. He copied Vren's orders and transmitted them to Earth on an open channel that General Price could receive. Then he added a brief message. I am sorry. We are not all like him. You have 10 days. General Raymond Price sat in a command center buried 300 feet below the Pentagon and watched asteroid trajectories scroll across multiple screens. 10 days to impact. 3 asteroids, each roughly a mile wide, redirected from the belt between Jupiter and Mars. They were accelerating toward Earth on courses calculated to strike New York, Beijing, and Mumbai. Billions would die in the initial impacts. The debris thrown into the atmosphere would trigger an extinction event that would kill billions more within months. The irony was not lost on him. The Dominion could not conquer Earth, so they would destroy it instead. Vren's orders had been intercepted and decrypted by human intelligence, working with information from Talvik. The Dominion Council leader was acting alone, without authorization from his own government. But that did not matter if those asteroids reached Earth. Authorization would not save anyone when rocks the size of mountains fell from the sky. Price brought in every expert he could find. Astronomers, physicists, engineers, and military strategists gathered to solve an impossible problem. How do you move an asteroid in 10 days? Conventional rockets would take months to reach the belt. Nuclear weapons might fracture the asteroids but would not change their course significantly. Earth had telescopes that could see distant galaxies and satellites that could read license plates from orbit, but nothing designed to push mile-wide rocks through space. Dr. Foster suggested an unconventional approach. Ask the Vargans for help. They had ships that could reach the asteroids. They had technology humans did not understand. Most importantly, they had motivation. Drex and his warriors were still on Earth. If the planet died, they died with it. Foster arranged a meeting in the low-gravity chamber where the Vargar warriors were recovering. Drex listened to Foster's explanation of the threat. His expression shifted from confusion to horror to rage. Vren was willing to kill 50 of his own warriors to destroy Earth. It was the worst violation of military honor Drex could imagine. Leaving soldiers behind was unthinkable. Deliberately murdering them was beyond comprehension. He did not hesitate before offering his assistance. He still had access codes to Dominion equipment. He knew ship systems and weapons. He would do everything possible to stop Vren's plan. Rebecca proposed something more radical. Send a combined human and Vargan crew. Humans had skills the Vargans lacked, particularly in high-stress environments and heavy equipment operation. Vargans knew Dominion technology and could operate in the low-gravity environment of deep space where humans struggled. Together, they might accomplish what neither species could alone. Drex agreed immediately. 6 of his warriors volunteered to join the mission. Earth's space agencies retrofitted a cargo hauler in 48 hours. The ship was designed to carry supplies to the International Space Station, but engineers modified it for deep space operation. They installed more powerful engines, added Dominion navigation equipment provided by Drex, and packed every available space with ion drive units built hastily in factories across 3 continents. The ion drives were simple technology, decades old, but they could change an asteroid's course if attached correctly. Rebecca led the human contingent. She had spent weeks working with Drex and understood Vargan communication protocols. 5 other humans joined her, each an expert in engineering, navigation, or emergency field repairs. The mixed crew launched 72 hours after receiving Talvik's warning. They had 7 days to reach the asteroids and alter their trajectories. 7 days to save billions of lives. The journey took 4 days. During that time, the crew worked in shifts, planning their approach and practicing coordination. Humans and Vargans discovered they worked well together. In low gravity, the Vargans moved with natural grace and confidence. They could make repairs in tight spaces and operate tools with precision. Humans brought something else to the effort: determination, a refusal to accept failure, a willingness to push beyond normal limits because normal limits meant the death of their homeworld. They reached the first asteroid with 3 days remaining. It was a massive chunk of rock and ice tumbling slowly through space. Rebecca and 2 Vargans suited up and moved outside the ship using small maneuvering jets. They carried an ion drive unit, basically a large engine designed to push steadily in one direction. The trick was attaching it securely enough that the drive could alter the asteroid's momentum without breaking free. Rebecca worked in low gravity for the first time in her life. Every movement felt strange. She would push too hard and drift away from the rock. She would try to grip a handhold and find herself floating instead. The Vargans helped guide her, their movements efficient and controlled. Together, they bolted the drive unit to a relatively flat section of the asteroid's surface. Drex, monitoring from inside the ship, activated the drive remotely. A blue glow appeared as ionized particles began streaming from the engine. The asteroid's course shifted by a tiny fraction of a degree. Over millions of miles, that tiny shift would mean missing Earth entirely. The second asteroid proved more difficult. Its surface was loose and crumbling. Bolts would not hold in the unstable material. One of the Vargan engineers, a female named Kira, suggested welding the drive directly to a metal-rich section of the rock. It took 6 hours of continuous work. Rebecca's hands cramped inside her suit gloves. Her air supply ran low twice, requiring her to return to the ship for refills. But eventually, the second ion drive was secured and activated. 2 asteroids diverted, 1 remaining. The third asteroid was the largest and moving fastest. It would require 2 ion drives to alter its course sufficiently. The crew had exactly 18 hours before the point of no return, the moment when even successfully changing the asteroid's direction would not prevent it from hitting Earth. Everyone was exhausted. They had been working for nearly 5 days straight with minimal rest. But they had no choice except to continue. Rebecca and Drex went outside together this time. They had developed an efficient system of communication. She understood his hand signals. He anticipated her movements. They worked as a team, human strength and Vargan precision combining to achieve what needed to be done. The first drive attached smoothly. The second nearly killed them both. A chunk of ice broke free from the asteroid and slammed into Rebecca, sending her spinning away into space. Drex reacted instantly, firing his maneuvering jets and catching her before she drifted beyond reach. He pulled her back to the asteroid and they completed the installation together. Both drives activated simultaneously. The asteroid began to turn slowly, far too slowly. Mission Control on Earth ran calculations and sent grim news. The asteroid would still hit Earth. Not a direct impact on Mumbai, but a glancing strike that would devastate the Indian Ocean and trigger tsunamis across 3 continents. Not enough. They had not done enough. 200 million people would still die. Rebecca refused to accept it. She called for every remaining ion drive. They had 6 more intended as backups. The crew deployed all of them in 12 hours of desperate work. They attached drives at multiple points across the asteroid's surface, creating a coordinated push that would normally tear the rock apart. It was reckless and dangerous and violated every rule of asteroid manipulation. But the asteroid held together. All 8 drives fired at maximum power. The rock turned further. Its trajectory shifted. Mission Control recalculated. The announcement came over a scratchy communication channel. The asteroid would miss Earth by 12,000 miles. Close enough to see in the night sky, but far enough to pass harmlessly by. The crew inside the ship erupted in cheers. Humans and Vargans hugged each other. Species differences forgotten in shared relief and triumph. They had done it. Together. Neither group could have succeeded alone, but combined. Human determination and Vargan expertise had saved a world. Rebecca and Drex floated side by side outside the ship, watching the asteroid drift away on its new course. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue marble against the black. Beautiful and fragile and safe, Drex's voice came over the suit radio, quiet and thoughtful. He thanked Rebecca, not just for saving his life, but for showing him what cooperation could achieve. The Dominion conquered through strength. Humans survived through adaptation. Together, they had found something better than either approach alone. They had found partnership. Talvik stood before the Dominion High Council and presented evidence that would destroy Council Leader Vren's career and possibly his life. Video recordings of secret communications, encrypted orders for the asteroid attack, financial records showing unauthorized use of mining resources. The council chamber fell silent as the evidence played across holographic displays. 23 council members watched their leader's crimes unfold in undeniable detail. Vren tried to justify his actions. Earth was dangerous. Humans were too strong. If word spread that a primitive species had defeated Dominion warriors, the entire empire would face rebellion. He had acted to protect the Dominion's interests. He had done what was necessary, but his words fell flat. He had ordered the murder of 50 Vargan warriors. He had attempted genocide against a species that had offered peace. He had acted without council approval and violated a dozen Dominion laws. The vote was unanimous. Vren was removed from power immediately. Guards escorted him from the chamber while he shouted accusations and threats. The council then faced the question of succession. Several members wanted the position, but none commanded enough respect. Finally, someone suggested Talvik. He was a decorated military commander. He had discovered Vren's plot. He had warned Earth when he could have stayed silent. Most importantly, he understood that the Dominion needed to change or it would collapse. Talvik accepted reluctantly. He was a soldier, not a politician, but someone needed to guide the Dominion through what was coming. Because news of Earth had already spread too far to contain, conquered worlds had heard that Dominion warriors fell instantly on human soil. Subject species learned that resistance was possible. Rebellion was spreading across 6 sectors. The Harvan colonies had declared independence. The Trell resistance was attacking supply convoys. Smaller species were forming alliances to resist Dominion control. On Earth, the returning crew received a hero's welcome. Rebecca and Drex emerged from their ship to find thousands gathered to greet them. Humans cheered for their defenders. The Vargan warriors walked slowly, still wearing support exoskeletons to help them function in Earth's gravity, but they walked with pride. They had proven that cooperation between species could achieve the impossible. They had saved billions of lives. Dr. Foster published his findings on human physiology in galactic scientific databases. The response was overwhelming. Xenobiologists across the Dominion could not believe the readings. Bone density 3 times galactic average. Muscle efficiency that should be impossible. Cardiovascular systems built to operate under constant strain. One researcher described humans as what happens when evolution is given a harsh world and refuses to create weak offspring. The academic interest quickly translated into practical applications. Species from low-gravity worlds wanted to understand how humans could function under such conditions. Could their own people adapt? Could training in higher gravity improve physical capability? Earth suddenly had something valuable to offer. Not weapons or ships or advanced technology. Knowledge, experience. The ability to survive and thrive in environments that crushed others. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell led Earth's first formal diplomatic mission to the Dominion Council. She was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties on every continent. Now she represented humanity to an empire spanning 12 galaxies. Her message was simple. Earth wanted peace. Earth wanted trade. Earth had no interest in conquest or domination. But Earth would defend itself if threatened. The display of human capability during the asteroid crisis had made that clear. Talvik met with Sarah privately after the formal session. He asked questions that revealed his concerns. How many humans were there? 8 billion. How many could fight if necessary? All of them, Sarah replied. Every human grew up under conditions that would cripple most species. Every human was trained by their own planet to be strong. Talvik understood the implication. Earth could not project power across the galaxy. Humans struggled in low gravity and space environments. But Earth itself was an impregnable fortress. Any invasion would fail, just like Drex's strike force had failed. The Treaty of Terra took 3 months to negotiate. Earth would remain independent and sovereign. No Dominion military vessels would enter the solar system without permission. In exchange, Earth would provide training facilities for species wanting to adapt to higher gravity conditions. Human engineers would consult on construction projects in harsh environments. Scientists would share research on physiology and adaptation. It was a fair exchange that benefited both sides. Drex faced a choice that many Vargan warriors faced after the mission. Return to the Dominion or request asylum on Earth. Most chose to return. They had families and responsibilities. But Drex and 5 others asked to stay. They wanted to understand humans better. More than that, they wanted to grow stronger. 2 years of living in low-gravity chambers had weakened them. But perhaps with training, with time, they could adapt to Earth's conditions. General Price approved the request with conditions. The Vargans would have access to facilities that allowed them to gradually increase their gravity exposure. They would work with human trainers. They would share their knowledge of the galaxy in exchange. It was an experiment. Nobody knew if Vargan physiology could adapt to Earth, but Drex was determined to try. The training started slowly. 0.7 gravity Vargan standard for most of each day, brief periods at 0.8, then 0.9. Drex's body fought him every step. His bones ached, his muscles burned, his heart struggled. But over months he felt something changing. His body was responding, building denser bone, creating more muscle fiber, strengthening itself to meet the challenge. It was painful and exhausting and slow, but it was working. Rebecca visited the training facility regularly. She had been promoted to general and put in charge of Earth's extraterrestrial relations. She watched Drex struggle through exercises that human children could do easily. She saw his frustration when he failed, his determination when he tried again. She remembered watching him fall on Earth's soil 2 years ago, helpless and defeated. Now he could stand unaided at 0.9 gravity. He was getting stronger. Other species noticed what was happening on Earth. The Trell sent a delegation to study human training methods. The Harvan colonies requested human advisors for their independence military. Smaller species formed what they called the Alliance of Free Colonies, and looked to Earth as proof that resistance to the Dominion was possible. Earth had not set out to lead a movement, but simply by existing, by being strong in a way the Dominion was not, humanity had become a symbol of hope. Talvik worked to reform the Dominion from within. He released several conquered worlds from direct military control, allowing them limited self-governance. He reduced tribute requirements and stopped forced conscription. He opened diplomatic channels with the free colonies rather than treating them as rebels. Many council members opposed these changes. They saw Talvik as weak. They wanted to return to the old ways of conquest and domination. But Talvik had seen what happened when the Dominion confronted a species it could not conquer. He had watched humans save Vargan lives even after being attacked. He had witnessed cooperation achieving what force could not. The old ways had failed on Earth. They were failing across the Empire as more species found courage to resist. The Dominion could either adapt or die. Talvik chose adaptation. 6 months after the Treaty of Terra, Drek stood unaided in full Earth gravity for the first time. It lasted only 30 seconds before exhaustion forced him to rest, but it was 30 seconds more than any Vargan had managed before. Rebecca was there to see it. She did not cheer or celebrate. She simply nodded in respect. Drex understood. Humans did not congratulate each other for walking. It was expected, normal. He was not celebrating an achievement. He was catching up to what humans considered basic capability. But in those 30 seconds, Drex felt something he had not felt since landing on Earth. Pride. Not the arrogant pride of the Dominion warrior who believed he was superior. The quiet pride of someone who had faced an impossible challenge and refused to surrender. He had fallen instantly on Earth's soil. Now he stood on it. That journey, from helpless to capable, from enemy to ally, from conqueror to student, had taught him more about strength than his entire military career. Real strength was not dominating the weak. Real strength was surviving the harsh, adapting to the difficult, and having the wisdom to learn from those who had mastered what you had not. 5 years passed since Vargan warriors first fell on Earth's soil. The low-gravity training facility in Colorado had expanded into a full campus, with accommodations for 20 different species. Representatives from across the galaxy came to study human methods of adaptation and survival. Some stayed for months, gradually acclimating to higher gravity. Others came for brief consultations before returning to their homeworlds with new knowledge. Earth had become an unexpected center for galactic education. Drex walked through the facility without assistance, without exoskeleton support, without the need for low-gravity chambers. His body had transformed over years of patient training. His bones had thickened. His muscles had developed in ways Vargan physicians had thought impossible. His heart was stronger, his lungs more efficient. He would never match human capability, but he could function on Earth. He could stand, walk, run, and work under the gravity that had once crushed him instantly. Rebecca found him in the observation room overlooking the training grounds. A new group of Trell students were attempting their first exercises at 0.8 gravity. They struggled and stumbled and fell repeatedly. Drex watched with an expression Rebecca had learned to read. Not mockery or superiority, understanding. He remembered his own failures, his own painful progress, his own determination to succeed despite every physical limitation. They discussed the changes happening across the galaxy. The Dominion still existed, but Talvik had transformed it from an empire into something more like a federation. Member worlds had representation on the council. Military forces were used for defense rather than conquest. Trade agreements replaced tribute demands. Some of the older council members resisted these changes and had left to form their own breakaway faction. The galaxy was more fragmented than before, but also more free. Earth's role in this new order was unique. Humans had no interest in galactic politics or expansion. They were content to remain on their harsh world, dealing with their own problems. But other species valued Earth for what it represented, a place where the weak could become strong, where species that had been conquered and oppressed could learn to defend themselves, where the natural advantages of high-gravity evolution were shared freely with anyone willing to endure the training. Dr. Foster had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on cross-species physiology. He worked with researchers from 40 different worlds, compiling data on how various species adapted to different gravity levels. His findings were revolutionary. Most species could improve their physical capability with proper training. The changes were never as dramatic as Drex's transformation, but even small improvements made a difference. Species that had been considered weak were discovering they could be stronger. The Free Colonies Alliance had grown into a significant political force. 37 worlds had declared independence from the Dominion and formed a mutual defense pact. They did not have Earth's natural advantages, but they had learned Earth's lessons: adapt or die, work together. Refuse to accept that strength belongs only to those born with it. Several human military advisors worked with alliance forces, teaching tactics and training methods, not for conquest, for defense, for the right to exist freely. Talvik visited Earth for the first time 5 years after the initial invasion. His ship landed at the same military base where Drex's strike force had fallen. He emerged carefully, wearing a support exoskeleton similar to what the Vargan warriors had used during their recovery. Even with mechanical assistance, each step was difficult. He met with General Price and Ambassador Mitchell in a conference room modified to 0.7 gravity for his comfort. The discussion was frank and honest. Talvik admitted the Dominion had made terrible mistakes. They had built an empire on exploitation and fear. They had convinced themselves that might made right. Earth had proven them wrong without firing a shot. Now the Dominion was paying for centuries of oppression as conquered worlds broke free. Talvik wanted to know if Earth would remain neutral, or if humans would actively support the rebellions. General Price's answer was measured. Earth supported freedom and self-determination. But Earth would not fight other people's wars. Human soldiers would train alliance forces. Human engineers would help build defenses. Human diplomats would negotiate treaties. But no human military would invade Dominion space. That would make Earth just another empire, and they had seen what empires became. Rebecca added that Earth had its own problems. Climate change, resource distribution, political conflicts. They were still learning how to govern 8 billion people on one planet. They had no business trying to govern the galaxy. Talvik accepted this with what might have been relief. He had feared Earth would try to replace the Dominion as the dominant galactic power. Learning that humans had no such ambition made the future less threatening. A galaxy without a dominant empire would be chaotic and difficult, but perhaps it would also be more just, more free, worth the struggle. The conversation turned to the future. Talvik proposed a long-term scientific exchange. Dominion technology shared with Earth's research institutions. Human adaptation studies shared with Dominion medical facilities. Joint exploration of high-gravity worlds that neither species could safely visit alone. It was the kind of cooperation that would have been impossible 5 years ago. It was only possible now because both sides had learned humility. The Dominion had learned it could be defeated. Earth had learned it could not do everything alone. Drex was granted Earth citizenship in a ceremony attended by representatives from 12 species. He was the first non-human to receive this honor. Ambassador Mitchell presented him with documentation and a flag. Drex accepted both with visible emotion. He spoke briefly, his translator converting Vargan words into English. He thanked Earth for teaching him that falling was not the same as failing. He had fallen instantly on Earth's soil, but he had learned to rise. That journey from helplessness to capability had changed him more than any military victory could have. After the ceremony, Drex and Rebecca walked outside without protection. Full Earth gravity, natural atmosphere. No assistance. They stood on the same ground where Drex had collapsed 5 years earlier. He looked around at the forest, the mountains in the distance, the blue sky above. It all looked different now. Not hostile, not crushing, just challenging. Just Earth. Rebecca asked what he would do next. Drex had options. He could return to the Dominion and serve under Talvik. He could join the Free Colonies Alliance as a trainer. He could stay on Earth and continue working with new students. Drex smiled, an expression his face had learned to make during his years among humans. He would stay. There were too many species that needed to learn what he had learned. That limitations could be overcome. That the strong could become stronger. That falling was only the beginning of the story. Not the end. A new group of students arrived at the facility later that week. They were from a species called the Wentar, small beings from a low-gravity moon. They looked at Earth's environment with visible fear. The gravity readings terrified them. The atmospheric pressure seemed crushing. One young Wentar asked Drex if they would survive the training. Drex knelt to meet the student's eyes. He showed the recordings from his first day on Earth. The proud warrior falling helplessly, unable to stand, unable to breathe, unable to function. Then Drex stood to his full height without difficulty. He lifted a weight that would have crippled him 5 years ago. He ran across the training ground with steady, confident steps. He showed the Wentar student what adaptation could achieve. It would not be easy. It would hurt. There would be days when progress seemed impossible, but it could be done. He was living proof. The student asked how long it took. Drex answered honestly, years, but every day of effort was worth it. Every moment of pain led to growth. The Wentar could choose to stay on their gentle moon, safe in low gravity but forever limited, or they could choose to challenge themselves to grow stronger, to expand what they thought was possible. The choice belonged to them. That evening, Drex stood on a hill overlooking the training facility and watched the sunset. Earth's sun was harsher than the Vargan star, brighter and more intense, but he had grown to appreciate it. Everything about Earth was intense. The gravity, the atmosphere, the species that evolved here. But that intensity created strength. Not just physical strength. Strength of character, determination, the refusal to give up even when everything seemed impossible. Rebecca joined him on the hill. They did not speak for a while, just watched the sky change colors. Finally, Rebecca asked if he ever regretted staying on Earth. Drex considered the question seriously. He had given up his military career, his life in the Dominion, everything familiar, but in return he had gained something more valuable, purpose, the knowledge that his existence made a difference, that students who came to Earth left stronger and more capable, that species who had been conquered and oppressed could learn to defend themselves because he was willing to share what he had learned. No, he did not regret staying. He regretted the arrogance that brought him to Earth as a conqueror. He regretted the centuries the Dominion spent crushing weaker species. He regretted that it took falling helplessly on hostile soil to teach him what strength really meant. But staying on Earth, learning from humans, becoming something more than a warrior, that was the best decision he had ever made. 10 years after Vargan warriors fell instantly on Earth's soil, the galaxy had transformed. The Dominion had reformed into a federation of equals. The Free Colonies Alliance had grown to represent 200 worlds. Earth had become a symbol of hope and a center of learning. Species from across known space came to study, to train, to learn that their limitations were not permanent, that with effort and determination, they could become more than they were. And in Colorado, on a planet most species found too harsh to visit safely, Drex taught new students the lesson he had learned. Falling was not failure. Falling was the beginning. What mattered was whether you had the strength to stand again. And if you did not have that strength yet, whether you had the determination to build it, because true strength was not what you were born with. True strength was what you chose to become.